quite as clearly. Just each one of them is kind of slightly diffuse. So I guess it's possible. Certainly possible from a magnetic tape perspective, and if that's the working hypothesis for the stone tape, then sure.
Great. Okay, next question. Can we intentionally create a stone tape energy/event?
Intentionally. So, okay, let's break that down. If one were to be able to intentionally create some sort of recording in stone tape, one would have to know that, that this particular area or this particular stone or this particular location were capable of doing so. That seems unlikely. It seems unlikely. But again, I don't know. Different people perceive different things. It may well be that somebody were to walk into a location in which a stone tape phenomenon exists. Some people see it, some people do not. And it may well therefore be that some people are capable of imparting onto stone tape and some people are not. I actually did think about this as well. And there's a classic kind of problem in philosophy which bleeds over to theoretical physics. It's a simple problem of perception. Let's imagine that I'm showing you what I perceive to be the color red. And here it is. I look at it and I see red. I see what this red is. Yeah. And I show it to you and I say to you, what color do you see? And you, of course, answer, it's red. But what I perceive and what you perceive are completely subjective. There's no way you can actually truly communicate to me what it is you perceive. You simply see something which is completely innate to you, and you recognize this thing you see as the color red, and you say to me it's red. So we agree, but we have absolutely no idea of what our innate perceptions are. And this is why we have science, because this question really kind of annoys us. So we invent all sorts of mathematics and trickery and experiments to measure the frequency or the wavelength of this light, which we call red, and we put an actual number on it. I perform the experiment, you perform the experiment, somebody across the universe performs the experiment, we all get the same number. So we can agree on a number, cool, but we can't agree on what we perceive because there's no way we can corroborate what we perceive. So imagine if, for example, somebody like yourself were to go to a location with a stone tape occurrence and you feel something, you perceive something in a way that maybe somebody like me could not perceive, and there's no way that you could communicate it. How is something like that possible to objectively verify? You can't objectively verify that you and I see the same thing when we look at the color red, and in the same way we can't objectively verify that we perceive the same thing when we go to a stone tape. So, okay, going back to the question, which was, can one intentionally create something at a stone tape site? I guess that probably would depend on the perception of the person or the sensitivity of the person. So maybe some people are just completely sensitive, maybe they're not. Maybe those people who are sensitive to stone tape locations are capable of recording things, and those people who are insensitive to them just aren't capable. This would be almost like, if you will, going back to the model that we have and the working hypothesis of magnetic audio tape. You could record your sound, your voice, noises around you, and those noises would be picked up and put on the tape. But you can create noises in excess of 20,000 hertz, which no microphone could pick up, or at least not no microphone, but a standard microphone wouldn't be able to pick them up. So you're making perfectly good noises at 20,000 hertz, but your equipment simply isn't picking it up. So when you play back the magnetic tape, there's nothing there, even though there absolutely was some noise. Of course, I don't know any of the answers to these questions. I'm just giving you the, as I say, the physics perspective on what those mechanisms and answers may be.
Well, I don't have any answers either. So there you go. Okay, next question. Can we perceive stone tape energy in real time across a distance?
In real time across a distance? Well, okay. You can perceive light across a distance. You just look up at the sky and you perceive the light from the sun. That thing's 93 million miles away, right? Mm-hmm. So absolutely you can perceive light from 93 million miles away. You look up into the night sky and you see stars that are even further away than that. Many, 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 many millions of miles away. So one can perceive information, and one can perceive information in the form of light at a distance away in real time. So I certainly don't see any reason why one could not perceive information stored in a stone tape at a distance. But, and here's the thing, the sun is an extremely powerful object. A star is an extremely powerful object, which is why we can see them from this great distance away. If one were to stand on the moon and hold up one's mobile phone and say to somebody on planet Earth, hey, look at this on my phone, nobody's going to see it because there's just not enough energy coming out of your phone for that person on Earth to see it. The answer to this question is, sure, theoretically it's possible to perceive information that is emanating from some source. But the further away you are, as far as physics is concerned, the more powerful it has to be.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. And then finally, someone wrote in, Josh, hey Josh, he just said Stephen Hawking's theory of multiple dimensions.
That's all he said?
He also said shadow people.
Shadow people. Okay,
I think I would know more about shadow people than you would.
yeah. Okay, let's team effort.
They're asking you the questions, not me.
Well, I can answer the multiple dimensions part.
Great.
We're going to divulge just into something incredibly interesting in physics, actually.
Great.
It's called the gauge-gravity correspondence. And this is a way to connect theories of quantum mechanics and theories of gravity, which has been really, really hard for physicists for the past 100 years. This actually started with Michael Faraday, who was mentioned earlier on in this podcast, who was the first person to really seriously consider the unification of things like electromagnetism and gravity. And even today, we have very good theories that try to connect quantum mechanics and gravity. But we're not quite there with a 100% concrete theory. The reason I speak about this is because all of this connection was revealed by a physicist called Malsadina. When Malsadina wrote down some gravity theories, and he wrote down some quantum theories, but he did that in 10 dimensions. See, to a theoretical physicist or a mathematician, the number of dimensions is just another number. One doesn't restrict oneself to 4 dimensions. We live in 4 dimensions, 3 of space and 1 of time, and so we like to write down our theories exclusively in 4 dimensions. But if you get stuck, and if you get, down a blind alley, just constricting yourself to 4 dimensions, why not? Let's just increase the number of dimensions. Let's have 6, let's have 8, let's have 10. Well, it transpires that in 10 dimensions, an incredible number of correspondences and an incredible number of coincidences, in inverted commas, seem to manifest themselves. So much so that the elegance of the theories that are being written down are just too powerful to ignore. So much so that most theoretical physicists worth their salt, really kind of believe that the universe as we know it is very likely a multidimensional object. As in, when I say multidimensional, I mean more than 4. Very likely that it's some sort of 10-dimensional object, because the physics of 10 dimensions is just so beautiful and so elegant. And Stephen Hawking wasn't really a massive proponent of multidimensional theories. His real contribution to physics was of gravity, the Big Bang theory, and the quantum mechanics of what happens around black holes. And he did some really neat work on entropy, as it's called, which is about information and order and things like that and what happens around a black hole. But a lot of this stuff was confirmed using Juan Malsadina's high-dimensional physics. However, the shadow people, do we know anything about the shadow people, Amelia?
So, shadow people, they're shadows of people that you don't see directly, so you can't look directly at them for the most part. They kind of hover around your peripheries.
I see. No, I see. Okay. No, this is, okay. There's a little teaching bit that an American, it's called Carl Sagan, talked about.
I love Carl Sagan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. So I will recreate that. What Carl Sagan talked about was it's very difficult for us as 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time creatures to imagine what things in extra dimensions might look like or what they might appear like. It's very difficult for us to do this. And so he very cleverly just said, don't try and imagine things in 4 dimensions. Just imagine you're a 2-dimensional creature and try to imagine what a 2-dimensional creature would see if 3-dimensional phenomena happened in this 2-dimensional creature's world. So we can do this. So let's just imagine we live on a piece of paper, right?
Okay.
We can look around, but we can't look up or we can't look down. So we can look forwards, backwards, left or right, but there's no notion of up and there's no notion of down. That's okay. So we're going to look forwards and we see things, and we're going to look left and look right and look behind us. Of course, if something's behind something that's in front of us, we can't see it. We can't raise our heads and look over it, nor can we lower our heads and look underneath it. But we could look around it, left or right. Now we're just living on this 2-dimensional world, observing things, killing time. And a 3-dimensional creature passes through our 2-dimensional world. Now, we're going to imagine that actually right now we are like gods observing this 2-dimensional creature and this 3-dimensional creature. We are just like these huge 4-dimensional gods. Well, what do we see? Well, we see a 2-dimensional sheet, and we see our 2-dimensional creature, and that poor 2-dimensional creature is just trapped on that piece of paper. And along comes this 3-dimensional thing, which clearly travels in a line going downwards and passes through the paper. This is nothing weird to us, right? It's just an object that just seems to move down, passes through the paper. What does that look like to the poor 2-dimensional creature? Well, it kind of just looks like something appears out of nowhere and then disappears, because that poor 2-dimensional creature can't see the 3-dimensional thing coming in from above. The idea or notion of above or below simply does not exist to the 2-dimensional creature. So that when the 3-dimensional thing is above the paper, can't see a thing. When the 3-dimensional creature passes through the paper, the 2-dimensional creature suddenly goes, oh, what is that in front of me? What is that thing that has just appeared right there out of nowhere? And then when it passes through the paper, below, where the 2-dimensional creature can see nothing, it just seems to have disappeared. So the perception of the 2-dimensional creature is just looking, doesn't see anything. Something just appears, and then it disappears. So a shadow person, in the context of multiple dimensions, may be some manifestation, some creature, some thing, which exists in higher dimensions than our 4, passing through the 5th, 6th, or 7th dimension, whichever, finds our little 4 dimension, crosses through, we see it momentarily, and then it disappears.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Well, you have Carl Sagan to thank for that. I certainly can't take any credit for that analogy.
Very cool. Thank you, Carl Sagan.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Dr. John.
You're more than welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no, this has been great. Thank you. That was so informative. My head's buzzing from it. You're very smart. That was awesome and informative. And I really hope all of our listeners enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the show and we will direct them to Dr. John. So Beth is gone and I'm still sad. We got a bunch of emails this week and a bunch of drive-by ghostings to go over, but I didn't love how I read that last story out loud. So we're going to wait for Beth to come back because she's really good at reading out loud. So if you sent us those, you can look forward to them next week on her return. We do have 2 new 5-star reviews we got this week. The first is from Foof, best podcast ever. Amelia and Beth did such a great job. Love how they're not serious. Makes my commute to work fly by. Thank you. Our next one comes from Agent Blanco. Big into paranormal investigation documentaries, and this one being so local is so very interesting. Amelia and Beth really draw in the listeners. Both fun and informative. Well, thank you so much. Those are both really awesome. If you'd be so kind, please make sure you leave our podcast a 5-star review on the Apple's iTunes podcast network. It helps us reach more people and get out there more. If you don't think we deserve a 5-star review, please message us privately and tell us what we can do to make the show a little bit better for you. And yeah, I think that's all I got this week. So I'm going to go over contact information. You can find us on Instagram at Ghost Hunting in New England, Twitter, Ghost Hunting NE, on Facebook, facebook.com/Ghost Hunting in New England. Check out our website, ghosthuntinginNewEngland.com, where we update regularly. Send us an email to ghosthuntinginNewEngland@gmail.com. Send us a carrier pigeon to Somerville Media Center in Somerville, Massachusetts. As always, our intro music is done by Aaron Schilb. You can reach him on Instagram at @TheAaronSchilb. And yeah, that's it for this week, guys. Sorry it was such a short episode, but we need the Beth energy back. All right, happy hunting.